I'm Dan Maslia, a member of Congregation VeShalom in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're here today to make a video on how to make boyos, which is a delicacy that many people have loved but have found it very difficult to make.
And I'm Mimi, Dan's wife, and I'm learning all about Sephardic food, background of which I never grew up, and find these delicacies delicious and unusual and easy to make.
So could you all tell me a little bit about the history of making boyos and maybe any funny experiences making them, stuff like that?
Well, my mother really used to make them. She immigrated here from Izmir, Turkey in the early 1900s, and she was always cooking, and I would always watch her. And I started to learn how to make these about 50 or 60 years ago. It is a recipe that has been passed down. I believe when the Sephardics were living in Spain before the Inquisition, they were making boyos along with a lot of other Sephardic delicacies. And I found it interesting to make, and I found a lot of people don't make them, and this is one of the things we're trying to get people to learn how to make with this video.
Now, do you want to talk about any of the funny stories that you have making boyos?
Well, I've had a lot of interesting experiences. My kids love everything I make, and I've been trying desperately to teach them how to make them, but their attitude is, as long as you're making them for us, why bother to learn how to make them? And they don't. But I've taken all of my grandchildren and their partners. All of them have had lessons in making various things. So now my kids say that their children can make it for them now. And Mimi, since Mimi is Ashkenazi, and when we got married about 8 years ago, she got into Sephardic cooking, and together we've been making boyos, berekas, kurabes, baklava together, just to keep the Sephardic tradition of foods going.
Perfect, let's get into the recipe.
Okay, now we're ready to make the dough for the boyos. The recipe will be put at the end of this video, so you'll be able to know what I'm doing. First part of it, to make the dough, we need 7 cups of flour. I use Pillsbury flour. One of the reasons I use Pillsbury flour is because my mama told me to use it about 60 years ago, and I still use it, although a lot of people will use white lead. The difference is on the amount of protein in each one. What I've learned over the years is that, recently I should say, is that when I want to learn something about something like this, I always go on ChatGPT. So if you want to know the difference between these two, I recommend you go on ChatGPT and it'll tell you all about it. The next thing we put on is 3 cups of yeast mixture. I use 1 packet of Fleischmann's yeast.
Can you use any other types of yeast or just?
Yeah, there are different things. You can use rapid rise yeast, you can use fresh yeast. There are all sorts of different kinds. I've just been using this for years, and I think it works best, but others work just as good. When you let the yeast dissolve in water and sugar, 1 teaspoon of sugar, you need to let the water, the temperature be between 100 and 110 degrees. That'll help it make it rise better, and the sugar helps the yeast rise better too. It takes 3 cups of water to mix with the flour, and what I do is I put 1.5 cups of water. I mix the yeast and the sugar, and I let it rise for about 10 minutes, stirring it, and then after that I'll just pour it into the mixer along with the other 1.5 cups of water, total of 3 cups for the flour. And then we need a little salt, so I add 1 teaspoon of salt, and that's it for the flour. Then we mix it. We got to plug it in first. We mix it. Now the dough is mixed, and what I have to do is take the dough and make sure with a little flour to smooth it out. And then what you need to do after this is you need to proof it. Now, this is what I'm going to do to proof the dough. You take a little bit of oil, not much, and spread it around the bowl. And then put the dough inside, cover it with a piece of foil, and put it in the oven with the proof attachment. I mean, if it has a proof feature on it, put it in the oven and set it for about 45 minutes.
Is there any way of knowing when it's done, or you just kind of just eyeball it?
You hit the proof and let it go for 45 minutes, and then you watch it. Then you'll see it'll almost double in size, and then you know it's ready to make the panettes, which I've just done. Now, if your oven doesn't have a proof feature, then the best way to proof the dough is to put it in a bowl and put it in a warm area in your kitchen or somewhere and let it rise till it gets double in its size, and then it's ready. And now, through the magic of video, this dough has risen and has doubled in its size. And now we're going to cut the little, we call them panettes. This is what we would do after it's risen. And we weigh the panettes. I use 1 7/10 ounces for the panette, and then we use 2 ounces of spinach, which you will see in a moment. So what I do is cut this and weigh it to get 1.7 ounces on each one.
What's the history of panettes? What's the origin of the word?
This is a Ladino word, and I don't know where it came from, but it's just a term they use when they make burecas, or the amount of dough, the size of the dough, they just call it a panette. If you make burecas, it's a panette. So you've got this whole batch of dough will make about 32 boyos.
So if I don't want to make them right now, is there any way to freeze the dough to save it for later? Or if I want to make half a recipe?
That's a good question, because the whole process can take about 3 hours if you let it proof twice. What I have done in the past is I will take this batch of dough and freeze it. After I let it proof, I'll freeze it, and then after a week or 2 weeks, it'll last a long time frozen. Then I pull it out after it's been proofed one time, and then I make these panettes. And then I let these panettes, they have to rise again for about 45 minutes. Okay, we've made the dough, we've let it rise, we proofed it one time for about 45 minutes. Then we took the dough that has risen and we cut panettes and put the panettes in oil, and now the panettes are in the oven rising again for about 45 minutes, at which time we'll make the boyos. Now we're going to tell you how we make the spinach mix.
We tear the spinach instead of cutting it because it prevents oxidation and cell damage.
So is there a reason that we use fresh spinach versus frozen spinach?
Well, there are a lot of reasons, but I'll give you my reason. If you remember seeing the movie My Cousin Vinny, when Vinny was a lawyer from New York, he was learning about grits, and he asked the waiter what grits were. He said, "What is a grit?" And the waiter told him, and he asked him, "Well, how do you make grits?" And the man told him how long it took to make grits. So then when he was in the courthouse with the witness, he asked the witness, he says, "Do you know how to make grits?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, how long does it take to make instant grits?" And the answer was, no responsible Southerner would ever make instant grits. So the answer to your question is no responsible Sephardic would ever make spinach with boyos with frozen spinach. That's why I use fresh spinach.
Gotcha.
So the rest of the recipe for spinach, we mix in 2.5 tablespoons of flour. Then we use 2 teaspoons of salt. We use kosher salt and mix it in. And then we use 2.5 cups of Parmesan Reggiano cheese. If you don't want to use Parmesan, you can use Romano cheese. I like Parmesan better. And then the whole process is to just mix it and mix it until it gets all blended in. Now that I have the spinach mix, we're ready to start measuring out for the amount to put in the boils. My recipe calls for 2 ounces of spinach in each boil. So what I do, I take it out and I weigh it, and then it comes to 2 ounces, and then I just put it in a plate, and then when I'm ready to make the boils, I'll ball it up and then roll out the dough, and we're gonna, next step is to make the boils.
Do you ever just eyeball the spinach, or you always weigh it out?
You know, when we did the panettes, I weighed them, I measured them out to 1.7 ounces, and then with the spinach, 2 ounces. But there's another way you can do boils. It'll save you a lot of time. You can weigh it if you want, or if you don't want to weigh it, just grab a handful, eyeball it, and put it in there like this, and it's going to work out okay. All right, now here are the panettes that have been risen for the second time they rose, proofed, and now they're ready to be made into boils. Also, the other thing is when you finish making the dough for the first time after it comes out of the mixer, you should beat it down real hard, just pat it down. What this does, it spreads the yeast all over into the dough, and it helps it rise a lot easier. Okay, now we're ready to actually make the boil. After 2 or 3 hours of prepping and everything, here is the panette. It's risen and it's ready to be made. I use this rolling pin. It's a lot better than the large ones you see, and you just simply roll it out and make it in a square. The object is to make it real thin in a square. Then, in order to make the dough real flaky, we have a mixture here of cheese and flour. After we roll it out the first time, we sprinkle the cheese and flour, which, as I said, will help make it flakier. Then we fold it back and push it out again to make it around a square. And for the second time, we add the flour and cheese mixture. And then we're just about ready to make the boil. Put the spinach in. We roll it out one more time in a square. When we fold them, we always like the corners to be real thin because we're going to fold them in, the corners are going to meet, and if they're not real thin, the dough will be real thick at the top. So we sprinkle one more time.
So 3 times total.
3 times total. And then we square it off, and then we take the spinach. Now when you get the spinach, you just squeeze it tight because it's going to cook out. And
Are you sure you add enough cheese in the filling?
Joshua, you sound like my children. You know, my children always say, "Dad, not enough spinach. Dad, not enough meat." I'm gonna put as much as I can, but not enough cheese. But you're no different than them. If you want me to put more cheese next time, I'll put more cheese. But right now I'm using the recipe. Okay, so now that it's in, we're gonna fold it this way, fold it that way.
So that's why you need them nice and thin.
Thin, yeah, because you don't want it to be too thick here. And then you fold it here. And then they're not gonna always look alike. They're gonna come out differently, but this is what we have. Now it's time for my grandson Joshua Whitehead, who happens to be the videographer. It's time for him to make one of the boils. I'm trying to teach him how to make some so he can make it for his mother and father. Because they won't make it for themselves.
That's good?
Yeah. Okay.
That's good?
Sprinkle again. Sprinkle.
Once I sprinkle it one more time?
Yeah.
How many times are you sprinkling it?
Go and push it out again.
How many times do you do that?
Sprinkle 3 times.
3 times.
Okay, let's go.
Not like the corners.
It looks like an amoeba.
Yeah,
Sprinkle first. Sprinkle first.
Oh.
Wait a minute, Joshua, that's too much cheese.
No.
That's too much cheese, Joshua.
Not enough
You're
cheese.
just like your
Not enough
just
cheese.
like your mother and your uncle.
There we go. That's good.
Oh my goodness.
That's the amount that you want.
Look how great his look. Perfect.
Nice.
Good.
Okay, now we're ready to cook them. The way we do it, we take the boys, we get an egg wash. We take one egg and put a little water in it so that it'll spread better. And then you just egg wash it. You put sprinkled cheese all over it. And then one after another, you put it on parchment paper. That's the best way, rather than putting it on oil. It just makes it more oil, and this will cook it just as well on plain parchment paper, and it won't stick. So we cook these at 400 degrees for usually about 45 minutes. I didn't eat these. Okay, now we're ready to put them in the cook. We put it at 400 degrees, and it takes about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the size, on the type of oven you have. We put it in and set the time. Okay. Now here we have beautiful boyos. They're not nice and brown and very fluffy and ready to eat. I hope you can learn how to make these and make them yourselves for you and your family. Thank you. What do you think?
They're delicious.
I hope you've enjoyed this video. Our goal was to teach other people to learn this art, which you should not let it intimidate you. The only thing, there are two things I've heard people say about making boyos. Two things. One, they said that it's too hard to make, and I always said that's a myth. You saw how easy it is to make. The other said it takes too long. Well, that ain't no myth, because it can take you three hours. But the shortcut, as I mentioned, is you make the first batch of dough, proof it, and you freeze it. You can freeze it for as long as you want. Then after you're ready to make the second batch, then you take it out, thaw it out, and only one time you have to proof it, and it takes a lot less time 2 different times rather than doing it all at one time.
And you can always make half a recipe or a quarter of a recipe.
The recipe that's going to be on this video is like I had 7 cups, but you can completely divide the recipe in half and it'll come out just as well. About 16 with a half recipe and about 32 with whole.
And what are some of the most important things to remember when you're making them?
Well, you got to remember that you got to get the right flour, and the yeast has to be risen. You have to let the yeast rise in the water before you actually put it into the flour.
Mimi, what's your main takeaway?
Definitely do not use frozen spinach. That's not the Sephardic way.
Well, thank you very much for watching this, and I hope in the future you'll make some boyos for yourself and your family. Thank you. We got some styrofoam trays. When you finish making them, one of us will wrap them up. You don't need to put egg wash and cheese on it. The ones you make, we're going to give them to somebody. They'll wrap them up and put your name on them. You're going to cook yourself. Any questions? Now, let me pass this out. You got a real detailed recipe.
Well, thank you for doing this, Dan. It's super exciting.
Super fun.
You're the best.
What I wanted to say was, about this spicy this, if you got a promise to make it back and send me a picture.
Yes.
I think you probably have because this is my third.
Hey, Shelley.
Yes. What's that?
I loved making something that's from my heritage that I can pass down to the children.
I'm so excited that we made these boys today, and it is a pleasure that Danny Maslia taught us. He is a real inspiration, and God bless Danny.
I agree totally. If Danny didn't do this, it was going to die with the generation that always did it. The young people need to learn how to do it. I'm thrilled that I learned how to do it, and I'm happy to make my kids learn to do it.
I now have a greater appreciation to how much my grandma and used to go to, and I'm so glad that Mr. Maslia could teach us how to do it.